And Keith, we're going to wrap up now with Everton and talk about the takeover, which of course you just mentioned. So, I mean, the joys keep going on. Now, we've heard, Keith, that MSP Sports Capital are on the brink potentially of a takeover if their £160 million loan is not repaid. What are your thoughts around this whole incident that sort of sprung out of nowhere, really?
Well, we're recording this on Tuesday, and it was last night at midnight. It's my understanding that the MSP loan and the demand to repay it was going to run out. It does appear that there's been an extension of the ability to do this. I'm told it's weeks and not months, but we've heard that before. So we'd look obviously towards the end of the season to get this resolved. It does appear that 777 have been taking big action to find other finance to be able to repay MSP. Whether MSP join an alliance with 777 and do something there in terms of funding, or whether all the creditors of Everton get together and decide how they're going to slice things up. Now, it does appear, and the rumours I'm hearing this morning, is that there is going to be something like that, and they're going to be deciding how they're going to sort of take the value out of the new stadium and share ownership of that new stadium. So that's one way that we could get a clear resolution and try and find a good, strong way to go forward. Except, of course, Everton then becomes a tenant of the stadium rather than being the owner, which was always the intention. So we're at a position where already all the debt repayment that is happening is swallowing up all the great new revenue streams that would come from the new stadium. So I think it's in everybody's interest to try and sit back, take a longer term asset and try and sort the short term issues out.
Is there a concern now too that, I mean, I know we've discussed in previous weeks, it's sort of very much on the brink that 777 may or may not get it done. But do you now feel more so that they're unlikely to get this deal done? Or actually, do you think there are still legs that they could actually go and secure ownership?
No, I'm actually feeling a bit more positive today that there'll be some solution. I don't necessarily think it'll be a 777 takeover, but they may be part of a group that's being formed to work out a solution. So I think they're all going to have to take a bit of a haircut. But I think that at the end, they should have a great asset going forward, provided we're not relegated. It's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes yet. So a long way to go in this saga, I'm afraid.
And is there any real threat, potentially, Keith, of administration? If no one is to cover the loan, is that likely? Or actually, do you think that someone will step in at the 11th hour to save the day?
Yeah, I've always thought that. I really don't think that administration is likely. Of course, you never say never. There is a path and a scenario where it could happen, but I think it's the most unlikely scenario of all. So I don't think that will happen. I think there's now already too much at stake. It's like the old theory that if you owe the bank £100, then you've got a problem. If you owe the bank 100 million, they've got a problem. And right now, the creditors have got enough, some big numbers involved with Everton. So I think the solution will be found.
And if potentially, Keith, MSP take charge, what will your thoughts be on them being involved in the club?
Well, they've been, from all I read about them before in Arizona with the Phoenix Suns, the NBA, they've been seen to be very good owners. What is always interesting about this, and I believe that Mashiri and Najafi, who is the MSP main shareholder, were both born in Iran in the same village, which is an intriguing fact, if I'm correct on that. So hopefully there's been some brotherly love spread around the table as they've discussed the way forward. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you think they ever expected potentially to come close to having majority control like they are in this position now, potentially?
Well, apparently the MSP loan is anchored by 51% of Mashiri's shares, which would give them control. But I don't know how keen they are to take that position. And so we'll see if they work on a financial structure or whether they do end up working with 777 to create some sort of syndicate or grouping to go forward. We'll have to see. I mean, still, it depends whether they believe in the 777 project with a multiple club situation. They may see that as an advantage. I'll have to leave them to decide. But there's no doubt they've got good sports experience. They've been very credible owners. And I would think they've definitely got resources that can work.
I mean, if 777 do secure last gasp extension to the loan payments, Keith, could it actually happen? Could we still see 777 come in, or actually is it now looking like that is much more of a fantasy rather than reality?
No, I think that's another scenario. There's been talks that rumors they've been talking to a company called Blue Owl in America, who have definitely got very deep pockets. And if they can manage to convince them to come to their project, they could pay off MSP and they could take over control. So many scenarios still left to run. And it's been an amazing business soap opera. And unlike anything, I mean, I've been around football 20 odd years. It's one of the strangest ones I've seen, but hey, it's here we are.
Do you think that this should highlight to the Premier League how they need to deal with this like quicker going forwards, rather than getting to a point now where it feels very much like it's touch and go, anything could happen? Actually, that this whole scenario with 7-7 partners proves it needs to be wrapped up with ownership quicker.
Yeah, look, I've in this case, I've actually got a little bit of sympathy for the Premier League, but I do think there should be a time limit of 3 months set out straight away to say, right, this is the time you've got to prove everything to us. It can't keep dragging on. The instance, of course, was Newcastle, which did drag on, I think, if I can't remember now, maybe 9-10 months, or maybe even longer, I think. But that was all around their position, around the piracy of the Premier League TV signal in Saudi. Slightly different issue, more political. But financially, I think there should be a 3-month limit. And if a potential buyer can't show what they need to within 3 months, then there's a lot of questions to be asked, surely.
And what's the solution, Keith? Are you just sort of just hopeful now that the takeover can be completed, whether it's MSP or 777, or actually, do you think still the Premier League need to take time to really decide who is the best suit?
Well, any new syndicate would have to come back to the Premier League and put their credentials together. I don't know if MSP have actually done this process. Certainly, if the debt wasn't repaid, they would have to go as 51% owners in front of the Premier League again. Sometimes that's done ahead of time and you can secure an approval, but I don't know if it has done. I doubt if it has. So again, we could be looking at a lengthy situation if the whole thing changes between MSP, 777, etc. So there's going to be a lot of financial engineering behind the scenes, a lot of discussion of structuring, and hopefully it comes sooner rather than later, because as we can see, Everton needs stability from the top to lead through to the dressing room.
I mean, aside administration, Keith, which seems probably the most obvious one in terms of a worst case scenario, what, in your opinion, is the worst case scenario? Is it that a new syndicate comes in? Is it that 7-7 come in and there's more problems? What's the worst case scenario that could happen from this?
Administration to me, would be by far the worst. That would give you another big points deduction. And I think it would create real uncertainty about sponsorships, revenue streams, and all sorts of things. So I'm hopeful that we can find a quicker solution from a stronger syndicate. However that's achieved, that's what I want. And as I say, before the end of the season, we've got to try and have some sort of clear path forward with a clear ownership group.